Oh, now it's working. Okay. Well, that's okay. So I actually started like a little under an hour ago. But the stream wasn't coming through because I'm smart. So that's good. That's that's good. I'm upset because I just got through a really lengthy chapter of the book too. So welcome back to another thrilling installment of Storytime Saturdays. I'm Fraggeth, your intrepid narrator, fearless narrator who has bitten off more than he can chew with this particular book. I'm going to have to go back and reread an entire chapter, a long entire chapter. I'm kicking myself very hard. But hey, you got to miss out on all my diatribes on the failings of this particular form of extreme anarchist libertarianism. So there's that. The less said, the better. Um, Great. Give me a sec here. I'm bummed because I had this all blocked out and bracketed out as far as timing is concerned. And that's all shot to heck now. Um, okay. Give me a moment. So, uh, previous stream. I'm sorry I missed a week, but I had work stuff I had to do. It took all day. Um, they're dealing with so Manny and Professor De La Paz are back on the moon, and they've just formed a new government for the moon, and the fix basically was in, or it's low key, high key implied that the fix was in, and they were going to get the various high ranking members of the revolution in the government somehow, somewhere. And Mike, the computer, may have skewed vote tallies. Voter fraud! Yay! But we never got confirmation of that. But what has happened latest is the farmers they've gotten the farmers to basically say, nah, we're not sending any more grain Earthside because they want to turn us into basically a slave state. And they're saying, nah, not happening. Not on your life, buddy. So, here we go. I might do this first chapter with the Russian accent. I say first, it's the 22nd chapter. Um, so after this chapter is the end of part two, whatever that was called. Where's the end of part two? Book two, A Rabble in Arms. Uh, the first book one is That Dinkum Thinkum. Book two is A Rabble in Arms, and book three is Tanstaffel. I just realized that I do not have the logo showing, the book cover. I'm smart. It has not been a great day, apparently. I have just had technical issue after technical issue, and now it's ID10T errors and PEBCAC problems. All things that must be expected when watching a Fragath stream, it appears. They have become distressingly frequent. Okay. Let me get another sip of water here, and then we'll carry on. Chapter 22. Shock to farmers was eased by continuing to buy grain at Catapult, but checks now carried printed warning that Luna Free State did not stand behind them, did not warrant that Lunar Authority would ever redeem them in scrip, even in scrip, etc., etc. Some farmers left grain anyhow, some did not. All screamed. But there was nothing they could do. Catapult was shut down, loading belts not moving. Depression was not immediately felt in the rest of economy. Defense regiments had depleted ranks of ice miners so much that selling ice on free market was profitable. Luno Holko Steel subsidiary was hiring every able-bodied man it could find, and Wolfgang Korsakov was ready with paper money, national dollars, printed to resemble Hong Kong dollar and in theory pegged to it. Luna had plenty of food, plenty of work, plenty of money. People were not hurting. Beer, betting, women, and work went on as usual. Nationals, as they were called, were inflation money, war money, fiat money, and were discounted a fraction of a percent on day of first issue, concealed as exchange service charge. They were spendable money and never did drop to zero, but were inflationary, and exchange reflected it increasingly. New government was spending money it did not have. But that was later. Challenge to Earth, to authority and federated nations was made intentionally nasty. FN vessels were ordered to steer clear of Luna by 10 diameters and not orbit at any distance under pain of being destroyed without warning. No mention of how, since we could not. Vessels of private registry would be permitted to land if A. Permission was requested ahead of time with ballistic plan, B. A vessel thus cleared placed itself under Luna ground control (Mike) at a distance of 100,000 kilometers while following approved trajectory, and C. Was unarmed save for 3 handguns permitted 3 officers. Last was to be confirmed by inspection on landing, before anybody was allowed to leave ship, and before ship was serviced with fuel and or reaction mass. Violation would mean confiscation of ship. No person allowed to land at Luna other than ship's crew in connection with loading, unloading, or servicing save citizens of Terran countries who had recognized free Luna. Only Chad. And Chad had no ships. Prof expected some private vessels to be re-registered under Chad merchant flag. Manifesto noted that Terran scientists still in Luna could return home in any vessel which conformed to our requirements. It invited all freedom-loving Terran nations to denounce wrongs done us, and which the Authority planned against us, recognize us, and enjoy free trade and full intercourse, and pointed out that there were no tariffs or any artificial restrictions against trade in Luna, and was policy of Luna government to keep it that way. We invited immigration, unlimited, and pointed out that we had a labor shortage, and any immigrant could be self-supporting at once. We also boasted of food. Adult consumption over 4,000 calories per day, high in protein, low in cost, no rationing. Stu had Adam Mike stick in price of 100 proof vodka, 50 cents HKL per liter, less in quantity, no taxes. Since this was less than 1/10 retail price of 80 proof vodka in North America, Stu knew it would hit home. Adam, by nature a teetotaler, hadn't thought of it. One of Mike's few oversights. Lunar Authority was invited to gather at one spot, well away from other people, say in unirrigated part of Sahara, and receive one last barge of grain, free, straight down at terminal velocity. This was followed by a snotty lecture which implied that we were prepared to do same to anyone who threatened our peace, there being a number of loaded barges at Catapult Head, ready for such unceremonious delivery. Then we waited. But we waited busily. Were indeed a few loaded barges. Then we unloaded and reloaded with rock, with changes made in guidance transponders so that Puna control could not affect them. Their retros were removed, leaving only lateral thrusters, and spare retros were taken to New Catapult to be modified for lateral guidance. Greatest effort went into moving steel to New Catapult and shaping it into jackets for solid rock cylinders. Steel was bottleneck. 2 days after our manifesto, a clandestine radio started beaming to Terra, was weak and tended to fade, and was supposed to be concealed, presumably in a crater, and could be worked only certain hours until brave Terran scientists managed to rig automatic repeat. Was near frequency a voice of Free Luna, which tended to drown it out with brassy boasts. Terrans remaining in Luna had no chance to make signals. Those who had chosen to stick with research were chaperoned by Styliagi every instant and locked into barracks to sleep. But clandestine station managed to get truth to Terra. Prof had been tried for deviationism and was under house arrest. I had been executed for treason. Hong Kong Luna had pulled out, declared self separately independent. Might be open to reason. Rioting in Novilen. All food growing had been collectivized, and black market eggs were selling for $3 apiece in Luna City. Battalions of female troops were being enlisted, each sworn to kill at least one Terran, and were drilling with fake guns in corridors of Luna City. Last was an almost true. Many ladies wanted to do something militant, and had formed a home defense guard, Ladies from Hades. But their drills were of a practical nature, and Hazel was sulking because Mum had not allowed her to join. Then she got over sulks, and started Styliagi Debs, a very junior home guard which drilled after school hours, did not use weapons, concentrated on backing up Styliagi air and pressure corps, and practiced first aid, and owned no weapons fighting, which, possibly, Mum never learned. I don't know how much to tell. I don't know how much to tell. Can't tell all, but stuff in history books is so wrong. I was no better a defense minister than congressman. Not apologizing, had no training for either. Revolution is an amateur thing for almost everybody. Prof was only one who seemed to know what he was doing, and, at that, was new to him too. He had never taken part in a successful revolution, or ever been part of a government, much less the head. As Minister of Defense, I could not see many ways to defend except for steps already taken. That is, steel Yagi air squads in warrants and laser gunners around ballistic radars. If FN decided to bomb, didn't see any way to stop them. Wasn't an interception missile in all Luna, and that's not a gadget you womp up from bits and pieces. My word, we couldn't even make fusion weapons with which such a rocket is tipped. But I went through motions. Asked same Chinese engineers who had built laser guns to take a crack at the problem of intercepting bombs or missiles. One same problem, save that a missile comes at you faster. Then turned attention to other things. Simply hoped that FN would never bomb Warrens. Some warrens, L City in particular, were so deep down that they could probably stand direct hits. One cubic, lowest level of complex where central part of Mike lived, had been designed to withstand bombing. On other hand, Tycho Under was a big natural bubble cave like Old Dome, and the roof was only meters thick. Sealer on underside was kept warm with hot water pipes to make sure new cracks sealed. Would not take much of a bomb to crack Tycho Under. But is no limit to how big a fusion bomb can be. FN could build one big enough to smash L City, or theoretically even a doomsday job that would split Luna like a melon and finish job some asteroid started at Tycho. If they did, couldn't see any way to stop them, so didn't worry. Instead, put time on problems I could manage. Helping at New Catapult, trying to work up better aiming arrangements for laser drills around radars, and trying to get drillmen to stick. Half of them quit for once the price of ice went up. Trying to arrange decentralized standby engineering controls for all warrens. Mike did designing on this. We grabbed every general purpose computer we could find, paying in nationals with ink barely dry, and I turned over job to McIntyre, former chief engineer for Authority. It was a job within his talents, and I couldn't do all rewiring and so forth, even if I had tried. Held out biggest computer, one that did accounting for Bank of Hong Kong in Luna, and also was clearinghouse there. Looked over its instruction manuals and decided was a smart computer for one that could not talk. So asked Mike if he could teach it ballistics. We made temporary link-ups to let two machines get acquainted, and Mike reported it could learn simple job we wanted it for. Stand by for new catapult. Although Mike would not care to ride in ship controlled by it, it was too matter-of-fact and uncritical. Stupid, really. Well, didn't want it to whistle tunes or crack jokes, just wanted it to shove loads out a catapult at the right millisecond and at correct velocity, then watch load approach Terra and give a nudge. HK Bank was not anxious to sell, but we had Patriots on their board. We promised to return it when emergency was over, and moved it to a new site by Rolligon, too big for tubes, and took all dark semi-lunar. One dark semi-lunar. Had to jerry-rig a big airlock to get it out of Hong Kong Warren. I hooked it to Mike. I hooked it to Mike again, and he undertook to teach art of ballistics against possibility that his linkage to new site might be cut in an attack. You know what bank used to replace computer? 200 clerks working abacuses. Abacusi? You know, slipsticks with beads, oldest digital computer, so far back in prehistory that nobody knows who invented. Ruski and Chinese and Nips have always used them, and small shops today. Trying to improve laser drills into space defense weapons was easier, but less straightforward. We had to leave them mounted on original cradles. Was neither time, steel, nor metalsmiths to start fresh. So we concentrated on better aiming arrangements. Call went out for telescopes. Scarce. What con fetches along a spyglass when transported? What market later creates supply? Surveying instruments and helmet binoculars were all we turned up, plus optical instruments confiscated in Terran labs. But we managed to equip drills with low-power big field sights to coach on with, and higher power scopes for fine sighting, plus train and elevation circles and phones so that Mike could tell them where to point. 4 drills we equipped with self-synchronous repeater drives so that Mike could control them himself. Liberated these Celsins at Richardson. Astronomers used them for Bausch cameras and Schmitz in sky mapping. But big problem was men. Wasn't money, we kept upping wages. No, a drill man likes to work, or wouldn't be in that trade. Standing by in a ready room day after day, waiting for alert that always turns out to be just another practice, drove 'em crackers. They quit. One day in September, I pulled an alert and only got 7 drills manned. Talked it over with Wyo and Sidris that night. Next day, Wyo wanted to know if Prof and I would okay Bolshoi expense money. They formed something Wyo named Lysistrata Corps. Never inquired into duties or cost, because next time I inspected the ready room, found 3 girls and no shortage of drill men. Girls were in uniform of second defense gunners, just as men were. Drill men hadn't bothered much with authorized uniform up till then. And one girl was wearing sergeant stripes with gun captain's badge. I made that inspection very short. Most girls don't have muscle to be a drill man, and I doubted that this girl could wrestle a drill well enough to justify that badge. But regular gun captain was on job. Was no harm in girls learning to handle lasers. Morale was obviously high. I gave matter no more worry. Sorry about that, folks. Stream just hiccuped. Glad I caught it this time as opposed to previous times where I haven't. So let me just make sure that's actually running. Come on. Do me a salad. Yeah. Yeah. Shit. Okay. Rightio. Okay. Now I have to find where I was. Hopefully, it didn't mute the last thing I had done. I don't think it did, but we'll find out the hard way later. Not now. Occur. Prof underrated his new Congress. Am sure he never wanted anything but a body which would rubber chop what we were doing and thereby make it voice of people. But fact that new congressmen were not yammerheads resulted in them doing more than Prof intended. Especially especially Committee on Permanent Organization, Resolutions, and Government Structure. Got out of hand because we were all trying to do too much. Permanent heads of Congress were Prof, Finn Nielsen, and Weil. Weil showed up only when he wanted to oh my god. Prof showed up only when he wanted to speak to them. Seldom. He spent time with Mike on plans and analysis, odds shortened to 1 in 5 during September of 76. Time with Stu and Sheeny Sheehan on propaganda, controlling official news to Earthside, very different news that went via clandestine radio, and reslanting news that came up from Earthside. Besides that, he had a finger in everything. I reported to him once a day, and all ministries, both real and dummy, did the same. I kept Finn Nielsen busy. He was my commander of armed forces. He had his laser gun infantry to supervise, 6 men with captured weapons on day we nabbed Warden. Now 800 scattered all through Luna and armed with Kongville monkey copies. Besides that, Wyo's organization, Wyo's organizations, Still Yagi Air Corps, Still Yagi Debs, Ladies from Hades, Irregulars, kept for morale and renamed Peter Pan's Pirates, and Lysistrata Corps, all these halfway military groups reported through Wyo to Finn. I shoved it onto him. I had other problems, such as trying to be a computer mechanic as well as a statesman, when jobs such as installing that computer at a new catapult site had to be done. Besides which, I am not an executive, and Finn had talent for it. I shoved first and second defense gunners under him, too. But first I decided that these 2 skeleton regiments were a brigade, and made Judge Brody a brigadier. Brody knew as much about military matters as I did, 0, but was widely known, highly respected, had unlimited hard sense, and had been drillman before he lost leg. Finn was not drillman, so couldn't be placed directly over them. They wouldn't have listened. I thought about using my co-husband, Greg, but Greg was needed at Mare Undrum Catapult, was only mechanic who had followed every phase of construction. Wyo helped Prof, helped Stu, had her own organizations, made trips out to Mare Undrum, and had little time to preside over Congress. Task fell on Senior Committee Chairman Wolf Korsakov, who was busier than any of us. Luno Hoko was running everything Authority used to run, and many new things as well. Wolf had a good committee. Wolf had a good committee. Prof should have kept closer eye on it. Wolf had caused his boss, Moshe Baum, to be elected vice chairman, and had in all seriousness outlined for his committee problem of determining what permanent government should be. Then Wolf had turned back on it. Those busy laddies split up and did it. Studied forms of government in Carnegie Library, held subcommittee meetings, 3 or 4 people at a time, few enough to worry Prof had he known, and when Congress met early in September to ratify some appointments and elect more congressmen at large, instead of adjourning, Comrade Baum had gavel and they recessed and met again, and turned selves into committee of the whole, and passed a resolution, and next thing we knew, entire Congress was a constitutional convention, divided into working groups headed by those subcommittees. I think Prof was shocked, but he couldn't undo it. Had all been proper on the rules he himself had written. But he rolled with punch, went to Novilen, where Congress now met, more central, and spoke to them with usual good nature, and simply cast doubts on what they were doing, rather than telling them flatly they were wrong. After gracefully thanking them, he started picking early drafts to pieces. Gotta put my game throat on. Comrade members, like fire and fusion, government is a dangerous servant and a terrible master. You now have freedom, if you can keep it. But do remember that you can lose this freedom more quickly to yourselves than to any other tyrant. Move slowly, be hesitant, puzzle out the consequences of every word. I would not be unhappy if this convention sat for 10 years before reporting, but I would be frightened if you took less than a year. Distrust the obvious, suspect the traditional, for in the past mankind has not done well when saddling itself with governments. For example, I note in one draft or report a proposal for setting up a commission to divide Luna into congressional districts and to reapportion them from time to time according to population. This is the traditional way. Therefore, it should be suspect, considered guilty until proven innocent. Perhaps you feel that this is the only way. May I suggest others? Surely, where a man lives is the least important thing about him. Constituencies might be formed by dividing people by occupation, or by age, or even alphabetically. Or they might not be divided, every member elected at large. And do not object that this would make it impossible for any man not widely known throughout Luna to be elected. That might be the best possible thing for Luna. You might even consider installing the candidates who receive the least number of votes. Unpopular men may be just the sort to save you from a new tyranny. Don't reject the idea merely because it seems preposterous. Think about it. In past history, popularly elected governments have been no better, and sometimes far worse, than overt tyrannies. Mm, sorry. But if representative government turns out to be your intention, there still may be ways to achieve it better than the territorial district. For example, you each represent about 10,000 human beings, perhaps 7,000 of voting age, and some of you were elected by slim majorities. Suppose, instead of election, a man were qualified for office by petition, signed only. A man were qualified for office by petition, signed by 4,000 citizens. He would then represent those 4,000 affirmatively, with no disgruntled minority, for what would have been a minority in a territorial constituency would all be free to start other petitions or join in them. All would then be represented by men of their choice. Or a man with 8,000 supporters might have 2 votes in this body. Difficulties, objections, practical points to be worked out, many of them. But you could work them out, and thereby avoid the chronic sickness of representative government, the disgruntled minority which feels, correctly, that it has been disenfranchised. But whatever you do, do not let the past be a straitjacket. I note one proposal to make this Congress a 2-house body. Excellent. The more impediments to legislation, the better. But instead of following tradition, I suggest one house of legislators, another whose single duty is to repeal laws. Let the legislators pass laws only with a 2/3 majority, while the repealers are able to cancel any law through a mere 1/3 minority. Preposterous? Think about it. If a bill is so poor that it cannot command 2/3 of your consents, is it not likely that it would make a poor law? And if a law is disliked by as many as 1/3, is it not likely that you would be better off without it? But in writing your Constitution, let me invite attention to the wonderful virtues of the negative. Accentuate the negative. Let your document be studded with things the government is forever forbidden to do. No conscript armies. No interference, however slight, with freedoms of press, or speech, or travel, or assembly, or of religion, or of instruction, or communication, or occupation. No involuntary taxation. Comrades, if you were to spend 5 years in a study of history, while thinking of more and more things that your government should promise never to do, and then let your constitution be nothing but those negatives, I would not fear the outcome. What I fear most are affirmative actions of sober and well-intentioned men, granting to government powers to do something that appears to need doing. Please remember always that the Lunar Authority was created for the noblest of purposes, by just such sober and well-intentioned men, all popularly elected. And, with that thought, I leave you to your labors. Thank you.
Gospodin President, question of information. You said no involuntary taxation. Then how do you expect us to pay for the things? Dan Staffel.
Goodness me, sir, that's your problem. I can think of several ways. Voluntary contributions, just as churches support themselves. Government-sponsored lotteries to which no one need subscribe. Or perhaps you congressmen should dig down into your own pouches and pay for whatever is needed. That would be one way to keep government down in size to its indispensable functions, whatever they may be, if indeed there are any. I would be satisfied to have the Golden Rule be the only law. I see no need for any other, nor for any method of enforcing it. But if you really believe that your neighbors must have laws for their own good, why shouldn't you pay for it? Comrades, I beg you, do not resort to compulsory taxation. There is no worse tyranny than to force a man to pay for what he does not want. There is no worse tyranny than to force a man to pay for what he does not want merely because you think it would be good for him. Prof bowed and left. Stu and I followed him. Once in an otherwise empty capsule, I tackled him. Prof, I liked much that you said, but about taxation, aren't you talking one thing and doing another? Who do you think is going to pay for all this spending we're doing? He was silent long moments, then said,
Manuel, my only ambition is to reach the day when I can stop pretending to be a chief executive.
Is no answer.
You have put your finger on the dilemma of all government, and the reason I am an anarchist. The power to tax, once conceded, has no limits. It contains until it destroys. I was not joking when I told them to dig into their own pouches. It may not be possible to do away with government. Sometimes I think that government is an inescapable disease of human beings. But it may be possible to keep it small and starved and inoffensive. And can you think of a better way than by requiring the governors themselves to pay the costs of their anti-social hobby?
Still doesn't say how to pay for what we are doing now.
How, Manuel? You know how we are doing it. We're stealing it. I'm neither proud of it nor ashamed. It's the means we have. If they ever catch on, they may eliminate us, and that I am prepared to face. At least, in stealing, we have not created the villainous precedent of taxation.
Prof, I hate to say this.
Then why say it?
Because, damn it, I'm in it as deeply as you are, and want to see that money paid back. Hate to say it, but what you said just sounds like hypocrisy. He chuckled.
Dear Manuel, has it taken you all these years to decide that I am a hypocrite?
Then you admit it?
No. But if it makes you feel better to think I am one, you are welcome to use me as your scapegoat. But I am not a hypocrite to myself, because I was aware the day we declared the revolution that we would need much money and would have to steal it. It did not trouble me because I considered it better than food riots 6 years hence, cannibalism in 8. I made my choice and have no regrets.
I shut up, silenced but not satisfied. Stu said, Professor, I'm glad to hear that you are anxious to stop being president.
So, you share our comrade's misgivings?
Only in part. Having been born to wealth, stealing doesn't fret me as much as it does him. No, but now that no, but now that Congress has taken up the matter of a constitution, I intend to find time to attend sessions. I plan to nominate you for king. Prof looked shocked.
Sir, if nominated, I shall repudiate it. If elected, I shall abdicate.
Don't be in a hurry. It might be the only way to get the sort of constitution you want, and that I want too, with about your own mild lack of enthusiasm. You could be proclaimed king, and the people would take you. We loonies aren't wedded to a republic. They'd love the idea. Ritual and robes and a court and all that.
No.
Ya da! When the time comes, you won't be able to refuse. Because we need a king, and there isn't another candidate who would be accepted. Bernardo the First, King of Luna and Emperor of the surrounding spaces.
Stuart, I must ask you to stop. I'm becoming quite ill.
Oh, you'll get used to it. I'm a royalist because I'm a Democrat. I shan't let your reluctance thwart the idea any more than you let stealing stop you. I said, Hold it, Stu. You say you're a royalist because you're a Democrat? Of course. A king is the people's only protection against tyranny, especially against the worst of all tyrants, themselves. Prof will be ideal for the job, because he does not want the job. His only shortcoming is that he is a bachelor with no heir. We'll fix that. I'm going to name you as his heir. Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Prince Manuel de la Paz, Duke of Luna City, Admiral General of the Armed Forces, and Protector of the Weak. I stared, then buried face in hands. Oh, bog! All right, so that gets us to the end of book 2. And book 3 is where some of the action starts back up again right before it ends. We are so close to the end. I am not going to be able to keep doing it till the end of the book, though. Let me see, where's the end of chapter 26? I think I'm going the wrong direction here. I'm absolutely going the wrong direction. Uh, because I would like to get to chapter 26, but because I blew an hour not streaming when I thought I was streaming and had to just reread that entire like 20-page chapter. It's not that long, but it was pretty long. I may not be able to get that far. But if I am able to get to chapter 26, then the last chunk of book I can do in one sitting, which would be good. And I'd be able to get it done by the end of the year, like I had promised. Sort of promised. I had hoped. Yikes, but chapter 25 is really long, though. How long was that last chapter I did? That's about as long as chapter 20. 25 is actually longer than that. Oh, jeez. Okay. Your cur. Right. Sorry about that. I had to get my other water bottle because I'm blowing through water very quickly. Book 3, Tannstaffel, Chapter 23. Monday 12, October 2076, about 1900, I was headed home after a hard day of nonsense in our offices in Raffles. Delegation of grain farmers wanted to see Prof, and I had been called back because he was in Hong Kong Luna. Was rude to them. Had been 2 months of embargo, and FN had never done us favor of being sufficiently nasty. Mostly they had ignored us, made no reply to our claims. I suppose to do so would have been to recognize us. Stu and Sheeny and Prof had been hard put to slant news from Earthside to keep up a warlike spirit. At first, everybody kept his pea suit handy. They wore them, helmets under arms, going to and from work in corridors. But that slacked off as days went by, and did not seem to be any danger. Pea suit is nuisance when you don't need it, so bulky. Presently, tap rooms began to display signs. No pea suits inside. If a loony can't stop for a half a liter on way home because of a pea suit, he'll leave it home or at station or wherever he needs it most. My word, had neglected matter myself that day. Got this call to go back to office and was halfway there before I remembered. Had just reached easement lock 13 when I heard and felt a sound that scares a loony more than anything else. A choof in distance, followed by a draft. Was into lock, almost without undogging, then balanced pressures and through. Dogged it behind me and ran for our home lock. Through it and shouting, "Pea suits, everybody! Get boys in from tunnels and close all airtight doors!" Mum and Milla were only adults in sight. Both looked startled, got busy without a word. I burst into workshop, grabbed pea suit. "Mike, answer!" "I'm here, man," he said calmly. "Heard explosive pressure drop. What situation?" "That's level 3, L City. Rupture at Tube Station West, now partly controlled. 6 ships landed. L City under attack." "What?" "Let me finish, man. 6 transports landed. L City under attack by troops. Hong Kong inferred to be. Phone lines broken at relay BL. Johnson City under attack. I have closed the armor doors between J City and Complex under. I cannot see Novilen, but blip projection indicates it is under attack. Same for Churchill. Tycho under. 1 ship in high ellipsoid over me, rising, inferred to be command ship. No other blips." "6 ships? Where in hell were you?" He answered so calmly that I steadied down. "Far side approach, man. I'm blind back there. They came in on tight garrison didos, skimming the peaks. I barely saw the chop-off for Luna City. The ship at J City is the only one I can see. The other landings I conclusively infer but from the ballistics shown by blip tracks. I heard the break-in at Tube West, L City, and can now hear fighting in Novilen. The rest is conclusive interference, probability above .99. I called you and Professor at once." Caught breath. "Operation Hard Rock. Prepare to execute."
"Program ready. Man, not being able to reach you, I used your voice. Playback?"
"Niet. Yes, da!" Heard myself tell watch officer at Old Catapult Head to go on red alert for Hard Rock. First load at launch, all others on belts, everything cast loose, but do not launch until ordered. By me personally. Then launch to plan, full automatic. I made him repeat back. "Okay," I told Mike. "Drill gun crews?"
Your voice again. Manned, and manned, and then sent back to ready rooms. That command ship won't reach.
Oh, Jesus. Jesus, boy. Aposelenian. Jeez Louise.
That command ship won't reach Aposelenian for 3 hours 4.7 minutes. No target for more than 5 hours.
He may maneuver or launch missiles.
Slow down, man. Even a missile I'll see with minutes to spare. It's full bright lunar up there now. How much do you want the men to take? Unnecessarily.
Uh, Sorry. Better let me talk to Greg.
Play back.
Heard my voice talking to my co-husband at Mare Undarum. I sounded tense but calm. Mike had given him situation, had told him to prepare Operation Little David's Sling, kept it on standby for full automatic. I, in quotes, as the last several I's have been, had assured him that master computer would keep standby computer programmed, and shift would be made automatically if communication was broken. I also told him that he must take command and use own judgment if communication was lost and not restored after 4 hours. Listen to Earthside radio and make up own mind. Greg had taken it quietly, repeated his orders, then had said, "Manny, tell family I love them." Mike had done me proud. He had answered for me with just right embarrassed choke. "I'll do that, Greg. And look, Greg, I love you too. You know that, don't you?" "I know it, Manny, and I'm going to say a special prayer for you." "Thanks, Greg. Bye, Manny. Go do what you must." So I went and did what I had to do. Mike had played my role as well or better than I could. Finn, when he could be reached, would be handled by Adam. So I left, fast, calling out Greg's message of love to Mum. She was pea-suited and had roused Grandpa and suited him in. First time in years. So out I went, helmet closed and laser gun in hand. And reached Lock 13 and found it blind-dogged from other side, with nobody in sight through bullseye. All correct, per drill, except Stilyagi in charge of that lock should have been in sight. Did no good to pound. Finally went back way I had come, and on through our home, through our vegetable tunnels, and on up to our private surface lock leading to our solar battery. And found a shadow on its bullseye when should have been scalding sunlight. Damn Terran ship had landed on Davis surface. Its jacks formed a giant tripod over me, was starting up its jets. Back down fast, and out of there, blind-dogging both hatches, then blind-dogged every pressure door on the way back. Told Mum, then told her to put one of boys on back door with a laser gun. Here, take this one. No boys, no men, no able-bodied women. Mum, Gramp, and our small children were all that were left. Rest had gone looking for trouble. Mimi wouldn't take laser gun. "I don't know how to use it, Manuel, and it's too late to learn. You keep it. But they won't get in through Davis tunnels. I know some tricks you've never heard of." Didn't stop to argue. Arguing with Mimi is waste of time, and she might know tricks I didn't know. She had stayed alive in Luna a long time, under worse conditions than I had ever known. This time, Lock 13 was manned. 2 boys on duty let me through. I demanded news.
Pressure's all right now, older one told me. This level, at least. Fighting down towards Causeway. Say, General Davis, can't I go with you? One's enough at this lock."
"Niet."
"Want me to get an earthworm?" "Want to get me an earthworm."
"Sorry." "This is your post. Stay on it. If an earthworm comes this way, he's yours. Don't you be his." Left at a trot. So, as a result of own carelessness, not keeping pea-suit with me, all I saw of battle in corridors was tail end. Hell of a defense minister. Charged north in ring corridor, with helmet open, reached access lock for long ramp to causeway. Lock was open. Cursed and stopped to dog it as I went through, warily. Saw why it was open. Boy who had been guarding it was dead. So, moved most cautiously down ramp and out onto causeway. Was empty at this end, but could see figures and hear noise in city, where it opens out. 2 figures in pea-suits and carrying guns detached selves and headed my way. Burned both. One pea-suited man with gun looks like another. I suppose they took me for one of their flankers. And to me they looked no different from Finn's men, at that distance, save that I never thought about it. A new chum doesn't move way a cobber does. He moves feet too high, and always scrambling for traction. Not that I stopped to analyze. Not even, "Earthworms, kill!" Saw them, burned them. They were sliding softly along floor before realized what I'd done. Stopped, intending to grab their guns, but were chained to them, and could not figure out how to get loose. Key needed, perhaps. Besides, were not lasers, but something I had never seen. Real guns. Fired small explosive missiles, I learned later. Just then, all I knew was no idea how to use. Had spearing knives on ends, too. Sort called bayonets, which was reason I tried to get them loose. Own gun was good only for 10 full power burns, and no spare power pack. Those spearing bayonets looked useful. One had blood on it. Loony blood, I assume. But gave up in seconds only. Used belt knife to make sure To make dead sure, they stayed dead and hurried toward fight, thumb on switch. Was a mob, not a battle. Or maybe a battle is always that way, confusion and noise and nobody really knowing what's going on. In widest part of Causeway, opposite Bon Marché, where Grand Ramp slopes northward down from level 3, were were several hundred loonies, men and women, and children who should have been at home. Less than half were in pea suits, and only a few seemed to have weapons. And pouring down the ramp were soldiers, all armed. But first thing I noticed was noise, din that filled my open helmet and beat on ears. A growl. Don't know what else to call it. It was compounded of every anger human throat can make, from squeals of small children to bull roars of grown men. Sounded like biggest dogfight in history, and suddenly realized I was adding my share, shouting obscenities and wordless yells. Girls no bigger than Hazel vaulted up onto rail of ramp, went dancing up in centimeters from shoulders of troopers pouring down. Girl no bigger than... It's a singular. I said plural, I think. She was armed with what appeared to be a kitchen cleaver. Saw her swing it, saw it connect. Couldn't have hurt him much through his pea suit, but he went down, and more stumbled over him. Then one of them connected with her, spearing a bayonet into her thigh, and over backwards she went, falling out of sight. Couldn't really see what was going on, nor can remember. Just flashes, like girl going over backwards. Don't know who she was, don't know if she survived. Couldn't draw a bead from where I was, too many heads in way. But was an open counter display, front of a toy shop on my left. I bounced up onto it. Put me a meter higher than causeway pavement, with clear view of earthworms pouring down. Braced self against wall, took careful aim, trying for left chest. Some uncountable time later, I found that my laser was no longer working, so stopped. Guess 8 troopers did not go home because of me, but hadn't counted. And time really did seem endless. Although everybody moving fast as possible, looked and felt like instruction movie where everything is slowed to frozen motion. At least once, while using up my power pack, some earthworm spotted me and shot back. Was explosion just over my head, and bits of shop's wall hit helmet. Perhaps that happened twice. Once out of juice, I jumped down from toy counter, clubbed laser, and joined mob surging against foot of ramp. All this endless time, 5 minutes, earthworms had been shouting. Earthworms had been shooting into crowd. You could hear sharp splat and sometimes plop. Those little missiles made as they exploded inside flesh, or louder punk if they hit a wall or something solid. Was still trying to reach foot of ramp when I realized they were no longer shooting. We're down. We're dead. Every one of them. We're no longer coming down ramp. Moving right along. Chapter 24. All through Luna, invaders were dead. If not that instant, then shortly. Over 2,000 troopers dead. More than 3 times that number of loonies died in stopping them, plus perhaps as many loonies wounded, a number never counted. No prisoners taken in any warren, although we got a dozen officers and crew from each ship when we mopped up. A major reason why loonies, mostly unarmed, were able to kill armed and trained soldiers lay in fact that a freshly landed earthworm can't handle himself well. Our gravity, 1/6 what he is used to, makes all his lifelong reflexes his enemy. He shoots high without knowing it, is unsteady on his feet, can't run properly. Feet slide out from under him. Still worse, those troopers had to fight downwards. They necessarily broke in at upper levels, then had to go down ramps again and again to try to capture a city. And earthworms don't know how to go down ramps. Motion isn't running, isn't walking, isn't flying, is more a controlled dance, with feet barely touching and simply guiding balance. A loony 3 years old does it without thinking, comes skipping down in a guided fall, toes touching every few meters. But an earthworm new chums it, finds self walking on air. He struggles, rotates, loses control, winds up at bottom, unhurt but angry. But these troopers wound up dead. Was on ramps we got them. Those I saw had mastered tricks somewhat had come down 3 ramps alive. Nevertheless, only a few snipers at top of ramp landing could fire effectively. Those on ramp had all they could do to stay upright, hang on to weapons, try to reach level below. Loonies did not let them. Men and women, and many children, surged up at them, downed them, killed them with everything from bare hands to their own bayonets. Nor was I only laser gun around. 2 of Finn's men swarmed up on balcony of Bon Marché and, crouching there, picked off snipers at top of ramp. Nobody told them to, nobody led them, nobody gave orders. Finn never had the chance to control his half-trained disorderly militia. Fight started, they fought. And that was biggest reason why we loonies won. We fought. Most loonies never laid eyes on a live invader, but wherever troopers broke in, loonies rushed in like white corpuscles and fought. Nobody told them. Our feeble organization broke down under surprise. But we loonies fought berserk and invaders died. No trooper got farther down than level 6 in any warren. They say that people in Bottom Alley never knew we were invaded until over. But invaders fought well too. These troops were not only crack riot troopers, best peace enforcers for city work FN had, they also had been indoctrinated and drugged. Indoctrination had told them, correctly, that their only hope of going Earthside again was to capture warrens and pacify them. If they did, they were promised relief and no more duty in Luna. But was win or die, for it was pointed out that their transports could not take off if they did not win, as they had to be replenished with reaction mass. Impossible without first capturing Luna. And this was true. Then they were loaded with energizers, don't worries, and fear inhibitors that would make mouse spit at cat, and turned loose. They fought professionally and quite fearlessly. Died. In Tycho Under and in Churchill they used gas and casualties. In Tycho Under and in Churchill they used gas, and casualties were more one-sided. Only those loonies who managed to reach pea suits were effective. Outcome was same, simply took longer. Was knockout gas, as Authority had no intention of killing us all, simply wanted to teach us a lesson, get us under control, put us to work. Reason for FN's long delay and apparent indecision arose from method of sneak attack. Decision had been made shortly after we embargoed grain, so we learned from captured transport officers. Time was used in mounting attack, much of it in a long elliptical orbit which went far outside Luna's orbit, crossing ahead of Luna, then looping back and making rendezvous above Farside. Of course Mike never saw them. He's blind back there. He had been skywatching with his ballistic radars, but no radar can look over horizon. Longest look Mike got at any ship in orbit was 8 minutes. They came skimming peaks in tight, circular orbits, each straight for target with a fast dido landing on end, sitting them down with high G, precisely at New Earth. 12 October 17, Greenwich 18 hours 40 minutes 36.9 seconds. If not at that exact tenth of a second, then as close to it as Mike could tell from blip tracks. Elegant work, one must admit, on part of FN Peace Navy. Big brute that poured 1,000 troops into L City, Mike did not see until it chopped off for grounding. A glimpse. He would have been able to see it a few seconds sooner had he been looking eastward with new radar at Mare Underum site, but happened he was drilling his idiot son at time, and they were looking through it westward at Terra. Not that those seconds would have mattered. Surprise was so beautifully planned, so complete, that each landing force was crashing in at Greenwich 1900 all over Luna, before anybody suspected. No accident that it was just New Earth with all Warrens and bright semi-lunar. Authority did not really know lunar conditions, but did know that no loony goes up onto surface unnecessarily during bright semi-lunar, and if he must, then does whatever he must do quickly as possible and gets back down inside, and checks his radiation counter. So, they caught us with our pea suits down, and our weapons. But with troopers dead, we still had 6 transports on our surface and a command ship in our sky. Once Bon Marché engagement was over, I got hold of self and found a phone. No word from Kongville, no word from Prof. J City fight had been won, same for Novilen. Transport there had toppled on landing. Invading force had been under strength from landing losses, and Finn's boys now held disabled transport. Still fighting in Churchill and Tycho Under. Nothing going on in other Warrens. Mike had shut down tubes and was reserving inter-Warren phone links for official calls. An explosive pressure drop in Churchill Upper, uncontrolled. Yes, Finn had checked in and could be reached. So I talked to Finn. Told him where L City Transport was, arranged to meet at Easement Lock 13. Finn had much same experience as I. Caught cold, save he did have pea suit. What? Oh, they caught him. Okay. Finn had much same experience as I. Caught cold, save he did have pea suit. Had not been able to establish control over laser gunners until fight was over, and himself had fought solo in Massacre in Old Dome. Now was beginning to round up his lads, and had one officer taking reports from Finn's office in Bon Marché. Had reached Novilen sub-commander, but was worried about HKL. Manny, should I move men there by tube? Told him to wait. They couldn't get at us by tube, not while we controlled power, and doubted if that transport could lift. Let's look at this one. So we went out through Lock 13, clear to end of private pressure. On through farm tunnels of a neighbor, who could not believe we had been invaded, and used his surface lock to eyeball transport from a point nearly a kilometer west of it. We were cautious in lifting hatch lid. Then pushed it up and climbed out. Outcropping of rock shielded us. We red Indianed around edge and looked, using helmet binocs. Then withdrew behind rock and talked. Finn said, "Think my lads can handle this?" "How?" "If I tell you, you'll think of reasons why it won't work. So how about letting me run my own show, cobber?" Have heard of armies where boss is not told to shut up. Word is discipline. But we were amateurs. Finn allowed me to tag along, unarmed. Took him an hour to put it together, 2 minutes to execute. He scattered a dozen men around ship, using farmers' surface locks, radio silence throughout. Anyhow, some did not have pea suit radios. City boys. Finn took position farther west. farthest west. When he was sure others had time, he sent up a signal rocket. When flare burst over ship, everybody burned at once, each working on a pre-designated antenna. Finn used up his power pack, replaced it, and started burning into hull. Not door lock, hull. At once his cherry red spot was joined by another, then three more, all working on same bit of steel. And suddenly, molten steel splattered out, and you could see air whoosh out of ship, a shimmery plume of refraction. They kept working on it, making a nice big hole. Then they ran out of power. I could imagine hoorah inside ship. Alarms clanging, emergency doors closing, crew trying to seal three impossibly big holes at once. For rest of Finn's squad, scattered around ship, were giving treatment to two other spots in hull. They didn't try to burn anything else. Was a non-atmosphere ship, built in orbit, with pressure hulls separate from power plant and tanks. They gave treatment where would do most good. Finn pressed helmet to mine.
Can't lift now, and can't talk. Doubt they can make hull tight enough to live without pea suits. What say we let her sit for a few days and see if they come out? If they don't, then they can move a heavy drill up here and give 'em a real dose of fun.
Decided Finn knew how to run his show without my sloppy help, so went back inside, called Mike, and asked for Capsule to go out to ballistic radars. He wanted to know why I didn't stay inside where it was safe. I said, "Listen, you... oh, God. Listen, you upstart collection of sorry. I said, listen, you upstart collection of semiconductors. You are merely a minister without portfolio, while I am Minister of Defense. I ought to see what's going on, and I have exactly two eyeballs, while you've got eyes spread over half of Crisium. You trying to hog fun?" He told me not to jump salty, and offered to put his displays on a video screen, say in room L of Raffles. Did not want me to get hurt. And had I heard joke about Drillman who hurt his mother's feelings? I said, "Mike, please let me have a capsule. Can Pea-Suit and meet it outside Station West, which is in bad shape, and I'm sure you know."
Okay, he said. It's your neck. 13 minutes. I'll let you go as far as Gun Station George.
Mighty kind of him. Got there and got on phone again. Finn had called other Warrens, located his subordinate commanders, or somebody willing to take charge, and had explained how to make trouble for grounded transports. All but Hong Kong. For all we knew, authorities' goons held Hong Kong. "Adam," I said, others being in earshot, "do you think we might send a crew out by Rolligon to try and repair Link BL?"
This is not Господин Celine, Mike answered in a strange voice. This is one of his assistants. Adam Celine was in Churchill Upper when it lost pressure. I'm afraid we must assume that he is dead.
"What?"
I'm very sorry, Господин.
"Hold phone." Chased a couple of drill men and a girl out of room, then sat down and lowered hush hood. "Mike," I said softly, "private now. What is this gum beating?"
Man, he said quietly, think it over. Adam Celine had to go some day. He served his purpose and is, as you pointed out, almost out of the government. Professor and I have discussed this. The only question has been the timing. Can you think of a better last use for Adam than to have him die in this invasion? It makes him a national hero, and the nation needs one. Let it stand that Adam Celine is probably dead, until you can talk to Professor. If he still needs Adam Celine, it can turn out that he was trapped in a private pressure and had to wait to be rescued.
"Well, okay, let it stay open. Personally, I always preferred your Mike personality anyhow."
I know you do, Mike, my first and best friend, and so do I. It's my real one. Adam was a phony.
Uh, yes. But, Mike, if Prof is dead in Kongville, I'm going to need help from Adam awful bad.
So we've got him iced and can bring him back if we need him. The stuffed shirt. Man, when this is over, are you going to have time to take up with me that research into humor again?
I'll take time, Mike. That's a promise.
Thanks, man. These days you and Wyo never have time to visit, and Professor wants to talk about things that aren't much fun. I'll be glad when this war is over.
Are we going to win, Mike?
He chuckled. It's been days since you asked me that. Here's a pinky new projection, run since invasion started. Hold on tight, man. Our chances are now even.
Good bog!
So button up and go see the fun. But stay back at least 100 meters from the gun. That ship may be able to follow back a laser beam with another one. Ranging shortly. 21 minutes.
Didn't get that far away, as needed to stay on phone and longest chord around was less. What? Oh, less than 100 meters? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, sometimes my brain is like, wait a minute. Missing participles makes this hard. I jacked parallel into gun captain's phone, found a shady rock, and sat down. Sun was high in west, so close to Terra that I could see Terra only by visoring against sun's glare. No crescent yet, new Earth ghostly gray in moonlight, surrounded by a thin radiance of atmosphere. I pulled my helmet back into shade. Ballistic control, O'Kelly Davis now at Drill Gun George. Near it, I mean, about 100 meters. Figured Mike would not be able to tell how long a cord I was using, out of kilometers of wires.
Ballistic control, aye aye, Mike answered without argument. I will so inform HQ.
Thank you, Ballistic Control. Ask HQ if they've heard from Congressman Wyoming Davis today. Was fretted about Wyo and whole family.
I will inquire.
Mike waited a reasonable time, then said,
HQ says that Gospasa Wyoming Davis has taken charge of first aid work in Old Dome.
Thank you. Chest suddenly felt better. Don't love Wyo more than others, but, well, she was new. And Luna needed her.
Ranging, Mike said briskly. All guns, elevation 870, azimuth 1930. Set parallax for 1300 kilometers, closing to surface. Report when eyeballed.
I stretched out, pulling knees up to stay in shade, and searched part of sky indicated, almost zenith and a touch south. With sunlight not on my helmet, I could see stars, but inner part of binocs were hard to position. Had to twist around and raise up on right elbow. Nothing. Hold it, was star with disk, where no planet ought to be. Noted another star close. Watched and waited. Uh-huh. Da. Growing brighter and creeping north very slowly. Hey, that brute is going to land right on us. But 1,300 kilometers is a long way, even when closing to terminal velocity. Remind itself that it couldn't fall on us from a departure ellipse looping back, would have to fall around Luna, unless ship had maneuvered into new trajectory, which Mike hadn't mentioned. Wanted to ask, decided not to. Wanted him to put all his savvy into analyzing that ship, not distract him with questions. All guns reported eyeball tracking, including 4 Mike was laying himself, via Selsons. Those 4 reported tracking dead on by eyeball without touching manual controls. Good news. Meant that Mike had that baby taped, had solved trajectory perfectly. Shortly was clear that ship was not falling around Luna, was coming in for landing. Didn't need to ask. It was getting much brighter, and position against stars was not changing. Damn, it was going to land on us.
500 kilometers and closing, Mike said quietly. Stand by to burn. All guns on remote control. Override manually at command burn. 80 seconds.
Longest minute and 20 seconds I've ever met. That brute was big. Mike called every 10 seconds down to 30, then started chanting seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, burn! And ship suddenly got much brighter. Almost missed a little speck that detached itself just before, or just at, burn. But Mike said suddenly, "Missile launched. Selson guns track with me. Do not override. Other guns stay on ship. Be ready for new coordinates." A few seconds or hours later, he gave new coordinates and added, "Eyeball and burn at will." I tried to watch ship and missile both. Lost both. Jerked eyes away from binoculars, suddenly saw a missile, then saw it impact between us and catapult head. Closer to us, less than a kilometer. No, it did not go off, not an H fusion reaction, or I wouldn't be telling this. But made a big, bright explosion of its own, remaining fuel, I guess, silver bright even in sunlight, and shortly I heard the ground wave. But nothing was hurt but a few cubic meters of rock. Ship was still coming down. No longer burned bright. Could see it as a ship now and didn't seem hurt. Expected any instant that tail of fire to shoot out, stop it into a Dido landing. Did not. Impacted 10 kilometers north of us and made a fancy silvery half dome before it gave up and quit being anything but spots before eyes. Mike said, "Report casualties. Secure all guns. Go below when secured." "Gun Alice, no casualties." "Gun Bambi, no casualties." "Gun Caesar, one man hit by rock splinter. Pressure contained." Went below, to that proper phone, called Mike. "What happened, Mike? Wouldn't they give you control after you burned their eyes out?"
"They gave me control, man."
"Too late?"
"I crashed it, man. It seemed the prudent course."
An hour later was down with Mike, first time in 4 or 5 months. Could reach Complex Under more quickly than L City, and was in close touch there with anybody as would be in City, with no interruptions. Needed to talk to Mike. I had tried to phone Wyo from Catapult Head Tube Station. Reached somebody at Old Dome Temporary Hospital and learned that Wyo had collapsed and been bedded down herself, with enough sleepy time to keep her out for night. Finn had gone to Churchill, with a capsule of his lads, to lead attack on transport there. Stu I hadn't heard from. Hong Kong and Prof were still cut off. At moment, Mike and I seemed to be total government. And time to start Operation Hard Rock. But Hard Rock was not just throwing rocks, was also telling Terra what we were going to do and why, and our just cause for doing so. Prof and Stu and Sheeny and Adam had all worked on it, a dummy-up based on an assumed attack. Now attack had come, and propaganda had to be varied to fit. Mike had already rewritten it and put it through printout so I could study it. I looked up from a long roll of paper. "Mike, these news stories and our message to FN all assume that we have won in Hong Kong. How sure are you?"
"Probability in excess of 82%.
"Is that good enough to send these out?"
Man, the probability that we will win there, if we haven't already, approaches certainty. That transport can't move. The others were dry, or nearly. There isn't that much monatomic hydrogen in HKL. They would have to come here, which means moving troops overland by Rolagon. A rough trip with the sun up, even for loonies. Then defeat us when they get here. They can't. This assumes that the transport and its troops are no better armed than the others."
"How about that repair crew to BL?"
"I say not to wait. Man, I've used your voice fair freely and made all preparations. Horror pictures, Old Dome and elsewhere, especially Churchill Upper, for video. Stories to match. We should channel news Earthside at once and announce execution of Hard Rock at the same time.
I took a deep breath. Execute Operation Hard Rock.
Want to give the order yourself? Say it aloud and I'll match it, voice and choice of words.
Go ahead, say it your way. Use my voice and my authority as Minister of Defense and acting head of government. Do it, Mike. Throw rocks at 'em. Damn it, big rocks. Hit 'em hard.
Righto, man.
Oorah! Hit 'em with rocks, which is the entire plan. Um, and I'm looking at my time here, and I do actually have some time, but I don't know that I'm going to be done this in 15 minutes. Excuse me. Oy. All right, give me a sec to refill my water, and I'll be right back. Alrighty. 200 flying girls. See, when I had started the stream initially, when I thought I was broadcasting but wasn't, I was playing a Red Elvis's song in an effort to mess with the algos. If I'm not going to make any money from this stuff, which clearly I'm not, then I might as well try to screw YouTube over while I'm at it. Because if they're going to be like, "Yo, we're just going to put ads on videos, whether or not they've got they're monetizable or not," uh, I'm like, "Yo, fuck off, buddy." Pardon my French. So I figure, hey, ding them with as many fair use instances of licensed material so that, oh, there's a copyright claim. And then if they try to monetize it, I imagine that puts them in a certain degree of, unless the contracts are drawn up with absolutely the entire world everywhere the same way, they could get themselves in some pretty hot water, is what I'm saying. And that is sort of that's sort of the dream at this point. It's not that I want to watch the wild bite. It's that I want to watch YouTube, Google as a great a whole, really get the piss taken out of them. You see, I'm fighting against the man too. Daily reminder though, for all of you who are playing Cyberpunk 2077 and getting excited over that, uh, this book uses the word choom first, so you should read it. Yeah, that's what I said. Listen, choom. Okay, so yeah, one more chapter, and then I'm gonna have to call it for the day. And it's I don't know how many pages. A lot. One, two, three, four, five, six, like 10ish. nine-ish. Nine-ish pages.
And me throat's dying. I can't speak.
Chapter 25.
A maximum of intrusive Schrecklichkeit with minimum loss of life. None, if possible.
Was how Prof summed up doctrine for Operation Hard Rock, and was way Mike and I carried it out. Idea was to hit earthworms so hard would convince them, while hitting so gently as not to hurt. Sounds impossible, but wait. Would necessarily be a delay while rocks fell from Luna to Terra. Could be as little as around 10 hours to as long as we dared make it. Departure speed from a catapult is highly critical, and a variation on order of 1% could double or halve trajectory time, Luna to Terra. This Mike could do with extreme accuracy. Was equally at home with a slow ball, many sorts of curves, or burn it right over plate, and I wish he had pitched for the Yankees. But no matter how he threw them, final velocity at Terra would be close to Terra's escape speed, near enough 11 kilometers per second as to make no difference. That terrible speed results from gravity well shaped by Terra's mass, 80 times that from Luna. 80 times that of Luna, and made no real difference whether Mike pushed a missile gently over well curb or flipped it briskly. It was not muscle that counted, but great depth of that well. So, Mike could program rock throwing to suit time needed for propaganda. He and Prof had settled on 3 days plus not more than one apparent rotation of Terra, 24 hours, 50 minutes, 28.32 seconds, to allow our first target to reach initial point of program. You see, while Mike was capable of hooking a missile around Terra and hitting a target on its far side, he could be much more accurate if he could see his target, follow it down by radar during last minutes, and nudge it a little for pinpoint accuracy. We needed this extreme accuracy to achieve maximum frightfulness with minimum to zero killing. Call our shots, tell them exactly where they would be hit and at what second, and give them 3 days to get off that spot. So, our first message to Terra at 0200 13 October 76, 7 hours after they invaded, not only announced destruction of their task force and denounced invasion for brutality, but also promised retaliation bombing, named times and places, and gave each nation a deadline by which to denounce FN's action, recognize us, and thereby avoid being bombed. Each deadline was 24 hours before local strike. Was more time than Mike needed. That long before impact, a rock for a target would be in... What? That long before impact, a rock for a target would be in space a long way out, its guidance thrusters still unused and plenty of elbow room. With considerably less than a full day's warning, Mike could miss Terra entirely, kick that rock sideways and make it fall around Terra in a permanent orbit. But even an hour's warning he could usually abort into an ocean. First target was North American Directorate. All great Peace Force nations, 7 veto powers, would be hit. NA Directorate, Great China, India, Sov Union, Pan Africa, Chad exempted, Mittel Europa, Brazilian Union. Minor nations were assigned targets and times too, but were told that no more than 20% of these targets would be hit, partly shortage of steel, but also frightfulness. If Belgium was hit first time around, Holland might decide to protect her polders by dealing out before Luna was high again in her sky. But every target was picked to avoid, if possible, killing anybody. For Mittel Europa, this was difficult. Our targets had to be water or high mountains. Adriatic, North Sea, Baltic, so forth. But on most of Terra is open space, despite 11 billion busy breeders. North America had struck me as horribly crowded, but her billion people are clumped, is still wasteland, mountain, and desert. We laid down a grid on North America to show how precisely we could hit. Mike felt that 50 meters would be a large error. We had examined maps, and Mike had checked by radar all even intersections, say 105 degrees west by 50 degrees north. If no town there, might wind up on target grid, especially if a town was close enough to provide spectators to be shocked and frightened. We warned that our bombs would be as destructive as H-bombs, but emphasized that there would be no radioactive fallout, no killing radiation, just a terrible explosion, shockwave in air, ground wave of concussion. We warned that these might knock down buildings far outside of explosion, and then left it to their judgment how far to run. If they clogged their roads, fleeing from panic rather than real danger, well, that was fine, just fine. But we emphasized that nobody would get hurt who heeded our warnings, that every target first time around would be uninhabited. We even offered to skip any target if a nation would inform us that our data were out of date. Empty offer. Mike's radar vision was a cosmic 20/20. But by not saying what would happen second time around, we hinted that our patience could be exhausted. In North America, grid was parallels 35, 40, 45, 50 degrees north, crossed by meridians 110, 115, 120 west, 12 targets. For each we added a folksy message to natives, such as Target 115 west by 35 north. Impact will be displaced 45 kilometers northwest to exact top of New York Peak. Citizens of Goffs, Sema, Kelso, and Nipton, please note. Target 100 west by 40 north is north 30 degrees west of Norton, Kansas, at 20 kilometers or 13 English miles. Residents of Norton, Kansas, and of Beaver City and Wilsonville, Nebraska, are cautioned. Stay away from glass windows. It is best to wait indoors at least 30 minutes after impact because of possibility of long, high splashes of rock. Flash should not be looked at with bare eyes. Impact will be exactly 0300 your local zone time, Friday, 16 October, or 0900 Greenwich time. Good luck! Target 110 west by 50 north. Impact will be offset 10 kilometers north. People of Walsh, Saskatchewan, please note. Besides this grid, a target was selected in Alaska, 150 west by 60 north, and two in Mexico, 110 west by 30 north, 105 west by 25 north, so that they would not feel left out, and several targets in the crowded east, mostly water, such as Lake Michigan, halfway between Chicago and Grand Rapids, and Lake Okeechobee in Florida. Where we used bodies of water, Mike worked predictions of flooding waves from impacts, a time for each shoreline establishment. For 3 days, starting early morning Tuesday the 13th and going on to strike time early Friday the 16th, we flooded Earth with warnings. England was cautioned that impact north of Dover Straits opposite London Estuary would cause disturbances far up Thames. Soviet Union was given warning for Sea of Azov and had own grid defined. Great China was assigned grid in Siberia, Gobi Desert, and her far west, with offsets to avoid her historic Great Wall noted in loving detail. Pan-Africa was was awarded shots into Lake Victoria, still desert part of Sahara, one on Drakensberg in south, one offset 20 kilometers due west of Great Pyramid, and urged to follow Chad not later than midnight Thursday Greenwich. India was told to watch certain mountain peaks and outside Bombay Harbor, time same as Great China, and so forth. Attempts were made to jam our messages, but we were beaming straight down on several wavelengths. Hard to stop. Warnings were mixed with propaganda, white and black. News of failed invasion, horror pictures of dead, names and ID numbers of invaders, addressed to Red Cross and Crescent, but in fact a grim boast showing that every trooper had been killed, and that all ship's officers and crew had been killed or captured. We regretted being unable to identify dead of flagship, as it had been shot down with destruction so complete as to make it impossible. But our attitude was conciliatory. Look, people of Terra, we don't want to kill you. In this necessary retaliation, we are making every effort to avoid killing you. But if you can't or won't get your governments to leave us in peace, then we shall be forced to kill you. We're up here, you're down there. You can't stop us. So please, be sensible. We explained over and over how easy it was for us to hit them, how hard for them to reach us. Nor was this exaggeration. It is barely possible to launch missiles from Terra to Luna. It's easier to launch from Earth parking orbit, but very expensive. Their practical way to bomb us was from ships. This we noted, and asked them how many multi-million-dollar ships they cared to use up trying it. What was it worth to try to spank us for something we had not done? It had cost them 7 of their biggest and best already. Did they want to try for 14? If so, our secret weapons that we used on FNS Pax were waiting. Last above was a calculated boast. Mike figured less than 1 chance in 1,000 that Pax had been able to get off a message reporting what had happened to her, and it was still less likely that proud FN would guess that convict miners could convert their tools into space weapons. Nor did FN have many ships to risk. We're about 200 space vehicles in commission, not counting satellites, but 9/10 of these were Terra-to-orbit ships, such as Lark, and she had been able to make a Luna jump only by stripping down and arriving dry. Spaceships aren't built for no purpose. Too expensive. FN had 6 cruisers that could probably bomb us without landing on Luna to refill tanks, simply by swapping payload for extra tanks. Had several more which might be modified, much as Lark had been, plus a few convict and cargo ships which could get into orbit around Luna but could never go home without refilling tanks. Was no possible doubt that FN could defeat us. Question was how high a price they would pay. So we had to convince them that price was too high before they had time to bring enough force to bear. A poker game. We intended to raise so steeply that they would fold and drop out. We hoped. And then never have to show our busted flush. Communication with Hong Kong Luna was restored at end of first day of radio-video phase, during which time Mike was throwing rocks, getting first barrage lined up. Prof called, and I was happy to hear. Mike briefed him, then I waited, expecting one of his mild reprimands, bracing self to answer sharply. And what was I supposed to do? With you out of touch and possibly dead? Me left alone as acting head of government and crisis on top of us? Throw it away just because you couldn't be reached? Never got to say it. Prof said, "You did exactly right, Manuel. You were acting head of government, and the crisis was on top of you. I'm delighted that you did not throw away the golden moment merely because I was out of touch." What can you do with a bloke like that? Me with heat up to red mark and no chance to use it. Had to swallow and say, "Spasibo, Prof." Prof confirmed death of Adam Celine. "We could have used the fiction a little longer, but this is the perfect opportunity. Mike, you and Manuel have matters in hand. I had better stop off at Churchill on my way home and identify his body." So he did. Whether Prof picked a loony body or a trooper, I never asked, nor how he silenced anybody else involved. Perhaps no hoo-hoo, as many bodies in Churchill Upper were never identified. This one was right size and skin color. It had been explosively decompressed and burned in face. Looked awful. It lay in state in Old Dome with face covered, and was speech-making I didn't listen to. Mike didn't miss a word. His most human quality was his conceit. Some rockhead wanted to embalm this dead flesh, giving Lenin as a precedent. But Pravda pointed out that Adam was a staunch conservationist and would never want this barbaric exception made. So this unknown soldier, or citizen soldier, wound up in our city's cloaca. Which forces me to tell something I've put off. Wyo was not hurt, merely exhaustion. But Ludmilla never came back. I did not know it, glad I didn't, but she was one of many dead at foot of ramp facing Bon Marché. An explosive bullet an explosive bullet hit between her lovely little girl breasts. Kitchen knife in her hand had blood on it. I think she had had time to pay ferryman's fee. Stu came out to Complex to tell me, rather than phoning, then went back with me. Stu had not been missing. Once fight was over, he had gone to Raffles to work with his special code book. But that can wait. Mum reached him there, and he offered to break it to me. So then I had to go home for our crying together, though it is well that nobody reached me until after Mike and I started hard rock. When we got home, Stu did not want to come in, not being sure of our ways. Anna came out and almost dragged him in. He was welcome and wanted. Many neighbors came to cry. Not as many as with most deaths, but we were just one of many families crying together that day. Did not stay long. Couldn't. Had work to do. I saw Milla just long enough to kiss her goodbye. She was lying in her room and did look as if she did be simply sleeping. What? She was lying in her room and did look as if she did be simply sleeping. Then I stayed a while with my beloveds before going back to pick up load. Had never realized, until that day, how old Mimi is. Sure, she had seen many deaths, some her own descendants, but little Milla's death did seem almost too much for her. Ludmilla was special, Mimi's granddaughter, daughter in all but fact, and by most special exception, and through Mimi's intervention, her co-wife, most junior to most senior. Like all loonies, we conserve our dead, and am truly glad that barbaric custom of burial was left back on old Earth. Our way is better. But Davis family does not put that which comes out of processor into our commercial farming tunnels. No, it goes into our little greenhouse tunnel, there to become roses and daffodils and peonies among soft-singing bees. Tradition says that Blackjack Davis is in there, or whatever atoms of him do remain after many, many, many years of blooming. Is a happy place, a beautiful place. Came Friday with no answer from FN. News up from Earthside seemed equal parts unwillingness to believe we had destroyed 7 ships and 2 regiments, FN had not even confirmed that a battle had taken place, and complete disbelief that we could bomb Terra, or could matter if we did. They still called it throwing rice. More time was given to World Series. Stu worried because he had received no answers to code messages. They had gone via Luno Hoko's commercial traffic to their Zurich agent, thence to Stu's Paris broker, from him by less usual channels to Dr. Chan, with whom I had once had a talk and with whom Stu had talked later, arranging a communication channel. Stu had pointed out to Dr. Chan that, since Great China was not to be bombed until 12 hours after North America, bombing of Great China could be aborted after bombing of North America was a proved fact, if Great China acted swiftly. Alternatively, Stu had invited Dr. Chan to suggest variations in target if our choices in Great China were not as deserted as we believed them to be. Stu fretted, had placed great hopes in quasi-cooperation he had established with Dr. Chan. Me, I had never been sure. Only thing I was sure of was that Dr. Chan would not himself sit on a target. But he might not warn his old mother. My worries had to do with Mike. Sure, Mike was used to having many loads in trajectory at once, but had never had to astrogate more than one at a time. Now he had hundreds, and had promised to deliver 29 of them simultaneously to the exact second at 29 pinpointed targets. More than that, for many targets he had backup missiles, to smear that target a second time, a third, or even a sixth, from a few minutes up to 3 hours after the first strike. Four great peace powers, and some smaller ones, had anti-missile defenses. Those of North America were supposed to be the best, but was subject where even FN might not know. All attack weapons were held by peace forces, but defense weapons were each nation's own pigeon and could be secret. Guesses ranged from India, believed to have no missile interception, Guesses ranged from India, believed to have no missile interceptors, to North America, believed to be able to do a good job. She had done fairly well in stopping intercontinental H missiles in wet firecracker war past century. Probably most of our rocks to North America would reach targets simply because aimed where was nothing to protect. But they couldn't afford to ignore missile for Long Island Sound, or rock 87 degrees, or rock for 87 degrees west by 42 degrees 30 feet miles. There's a quote there. Feet north. Lake Michigan, center of triangle formed by Chicago, Grand Rapids, and Milwaukee. But that heavy gravity makes interception a tough job and very costly. They would try to stop us only where worth it. But we couldn't afford to let them stop us. So some rocks were backed up with more rocks. What H-tipped interceptors would do to them even Mike did not know. Not enough data. Mike assumed that interceptors would be triggered by radar, but at what distance? Sure, close enough and a steel-cased rock is incandescent gas a microsecond later, but is world of difference between a multi-ton rock and touchy circuitry of an H-missile. What would kill latter would simply shove one of our brutes violently aside, cause to miss. We needed to prove to them that we could go on throwing cheap rocks long after they ran out of expensive $1,000,000, $100,000 H-tipped interceptor rockets. If not proved first time, then next time Terra turned North America toward us, we would go after targets we had been unable to hit first time. Backup rocks for second pass, and for third, were already in place. We're already in space, to be nudged where needed. If 3 bombings on 3 rotations of Terra did not do it, we might still be throwing rocks in 77, till they ran out of interceptors, or till they destroyed us. Far more likely. For a century, North American Space Defense Command had been buried in a mountain south of Colorado Springs, Colorado, a city of no other importance. During wet firecracker war, the Cheyenne Mountain took a direct hit. Space Defense Command Post survived. But not sundry deer, trees, most of city, and some on top of mountain. What we were about to do should not kill anybody unless they stayed outside on that mountain despite 3 days' steady warnings. But North American Space Defense Command was to receive full lunar treatment. 12 rock missiles on first pass, then all we could spare on second rotation, and on third. And so on, until we ran out of steel casings or were put out of action. Or North American Directorate hollered quits. This was one target where we would not be satisfied to get just one missile to target. We meant to smash that mountain and keep on smashing. To hurt their morale. To let them know we were still around. Disrupt their communications and bash in command post if pounding could do it. Or at least give them splitting headaches and no rest. If we could prove to all Terra that we could drive home a sustained attack on strongest Gibraltar of their space defenses, it would save having to prove it by smashing Manhattan or San Francisco. Which we would not do even if losing. Why? Hard sense. If we used our last strength to destroy a major city, they would not punish us. They would destroy us. As Prof put it, if possible, leave room for your enemy to become your friend. But any military target is fair game. Don't think anybody got much sleep Thursday night. All loonies knew that Friday morning would be our big try. And everybody Earthside knew And at last their news admitted that Spacetrack had picked up objects headed for Terra, presumably rice bowls those rebellious convicts had boasted about. But was not a war warning, was mostly assurances that Moon Colony could not possibly build H-bombs, but might be prudent to avoid areas which these criminals claimed to be aiming at. Except one funny boy, popular news comic, who said our targets would be safest place to be. This on video, standing on a big X mark which he claimed was 110 west by 40 north. Don't recall hearing of him later. A reflector at Richardson Observatory was hooked up for video display, and I think every loony was watching, in homes, tap rooms, old dome, except a few who chose to pea-suit and eyeball it up on surface, despite being bright semi-lunar at most warrens. At Brigadier Judge Brody's insistence, we hurriedly rigged a helper antenna at catapult head so that his drill men could watch video in ready rooms, else we might not have had a gunner on duty. Armed forces, Brody's gunners, Finn's militia, Stilyagi Air Corps, stayed on blue alert throughout period. Congress was in informal session in Novi Bolshoi Theater, where Terra was shown on a big screen. Some VIPs, Prof, Stu, Wolfgang, others, watched a smaller screen in Warden's former office in Complex Upper. I was with them part-time, in and out, nervous as a cat with puppies, grabbing a sandwich and forgetting to eat, but mostly stayed locked in with Mike in Complex Under. Couldn't hold still. About 0800, Mike said, "Man, my oldest and best friend, may I say something without offending you?"
Huh? Sure. When did you ever worry about offending me?
Always, man, once I understood that you could be offended. It is now only 3.57 times 10 to the ninth microseconds until impact, and this is the most complex problem I have ever tried to solve against real-time running. Whenever you speak to me, I always use a large percentage of my capacity, perhaps larger than you suspect, during several million microseconds in my great need to analyze exactly what you have said and to reply correctly.
You're saying, don't juggle my elbow, I'm busy.
I want to give you a perfect solution, man.
I scan. I'll go back up with Prof.
As you wish, but do please stay where I can reach you. I may need your help. Last was nonsense, and we both knew it. Problem was beyond human capacity, too late even to order abort. What Mike meant was, I'm nervous too, and I want your company, but no talking, please.
Okay, Mike, I'll stay in touch. A phone somewhere. We'll punch Mycroft XXX but won't speak, so don't answer.
Thank you, Mike, my best friend. Bolshoye spasibo. Spasibo.
See you later.
Went up, decided did not want company after all. Pea-suited, found long phone cord, jacked it into helmet, looped it over arm, went clear to surface. Was a service phone. Service phone in utility shed outside lock. Jacked into it, punched Mike's number, went outside. Got into shade of shed and peeked around edge at Terra. She was hanging as usual halfway up western sky, in crescent big and gaudy, 3+ days past new. Sun had dropped toward western horizon, but its glare kept me from seeing Terra clearly. Chin visor wasn't enough, so moved back behind shed, and away from it, till could see Terra over shed while still shielded from sun. Was better. Sunrise chopped through bulge of Africa, so dazzle point was on land. Not too bad. But South Pole Cap was so blinding white, could not see North America too well, lighted only by moonlight. Twisted neck and got helmet binoculars on it. Good ones, Zeiss 7x50s that had once belonged to Warden. North America spread like a ghostly map before me. Was unusually free of cloud, could see cities, glowing spots with no edges. 0837. At 0850, Mike gave me a voice countdown. Didn't need his attention. He could have programmed it full automatic any time earlier. 851. 8:52, 8:53, 1 minute, 59, 58, 57, half minute, 29, 28, 27, 10 seconds, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And suddenly, that grid burst out in diamond pinpoints. And with that, I'm going to have to leave this for a subsequent section on how people can find out just how well the Lunar Revolution's counterattack goes.
Ha ha! I gotta keep you hanging. Otherwise, what's the point? You'll never come back.
You'll never show up in the first place.
You'll never come back.
So there. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Whoever tuned in, if nobody tuned in, you should have. We have the word choom here. You Cyberpunk 2077 people getting all excited over that and trying to incorporate it in your vernacular. Ha! We did it first, loonies. Um, um, so yeah, thanks for tuning in. I do try to do this every week. I wasn't able to last week for reasons. Um, so I do other streams throughout the week. I have a Mecha Monday stream where I do something giant robot related or mecha adjacent. I just got done the lion's share of the a game called Macross Ultimate Frontier. I'm going to take a brief break from that one and do some streams of a game called Phantom Brigade that's still in development and looks to be sort of a front mission like. So I gotta, you know. Um, on Wednesdays I have Warframe Wednesdays where I do something Warframey for a while, and then on Saturdays it's Storytime Saturdays where I do short stories and indeed entire novels read aloud because that's how it should be, I guess. If you're not gonna if you're not gonna get out and get the book itself and read it yourselves, I'm gonna read it at you. So there. And in this case, we're like one session away from being done with The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert Heinlein, classic from '66. Um, so yeah, thanks again. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay toasty. It's getting chilly, at least where I'm at. And have a great week. See y'all's next time. Bye now.